You are listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 124. Failure, a word that scares us, that conjures up the most negative feelings and thoughts. But what if we changed the meaning behind it? What if we changed the perspective and looked at it from a different lens? Would it be easier for you to step outside your comfort zone and take a leap of faith? Today we're chatting about this, but also how we can take better care of our skin from the inside out. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fragon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Dani Ferguson, holistic nutritionist, founder, and podcast host of Detoxing with Dani. She works with women to achieve optimal gut health, glowing skin, and a gorgeous you. I am so for this. I absolutely am just amazed by your gut and, everything that it impacts when it is off, especially your skin. So I cannot wait to dive into this with you, Dani. So welcome. I'm just so honored to have you as my guest, and I'm so excited to learn all about your story and your advice. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, my name is Dani Ferguson. I am a holistic nutritionist and integrative health practitioner located in Seal Beach, California. It is a beautiful sunny day here, so it's kind of a nice transition into spring and summer. I primarily work with women virtually one-on-one, helping them clear their skin. Usually it's women who have felt like they have tried everything to clear their acne, eczema, rosacea, psoriasis. They've tried the doctor route, they've tried the medication route, topical treatments, and nothing seems to be working. And so together we really work to uncover the root cause, because it is my belief that our body uses our skin, our hair, our nails, everything that we can see physically to tell us what is going on inside of our body. And if something is off, we need to uncover what the root cause is. And from there, we can address it. And usually once we do that, things clear up pretty quickly and stay gone for good. And that's really what the goal is to help women clear their skin for good and not have to worry about it anymore.
Oh God, yes. I mean, when you get into your 30s, which I am in my 30s, and you still have acne, you're like, what the hell? This is supposed to be just like a high school hormonal thing, and then you're still having to deal with that crap in your 30s as an adult. You're like, no.
Yep, totally. And I can relate. I'm also in my 30s, knock on wood. I don't have acne anymore, but I had it in my late 20s, but I still had that same thought process of, okay, what in the world is going on right now? Like, this is not something that should happen to me. I had just graduated college. I was like going out into the workforce. I wanted to like literally put my best foot and best face forward, and it just was not happening. And so that's kind of what triggered me to figure it out, because I did the whole like go down the rabbit hole of, okay, do I go Western medicine, Eastern medicine, natural? Like, what do I do? I tried it all, and I totally get it, because you're just like, okay, body, I thought we were supposed to work together here.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's a lot more awareness with people. Like, I feel like you stand out even more as an adult if you have acne.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a child or a teenager and you have acne, even though it's really hard for them, especially like when you're younger, I know how it was in high school. It was not fun having acne, but I mean, it's almost expected type thing, right? You're going through so many hormonal changes. But then when I started getting acne again in my late 20s and 30s, I was like, I felt different. I felt like I was being viewed kind of negatively. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why do I still have acne?
Totally. Yeah. And it's very common because, like you said, it seems very normal, and it is very common for people when they're in their high school or going through puberty. Acne is going to happen. But when you're an adult and you're struggling with this, I will say 9 times out of 10, most people don't really notice it, at least like your colleagues and people who you probably don't see or don't have as close of a relationship with. Now, there is the family side of things where you have like that aunt or your mom or that like grandma who's like, now, honey, we need to fix your skin. And you're just like mortified because you're like, holy, I didn't know it was that bad. Or like, I knew it was that bad and I'm trying. But it is becoming a lot more common. I think the last statistic that I read, it was like 40% of the visits that dermatologists see about acne is for adult acne, which is huge. It's a huge spike. And I think it has a lot to do with a lot of different factors. I mean, the stress that we're all under, the amount of antibiotics that most of the adults who are struggling with their acne today probably had when they were younger. And I mean, I'm right there in that same boat because if you had an ear infection, you had antibiotics. If you had strep throat, like there was a lot of reasons why antibiotics were needed, and they can be very life saving, but it's what we do on the back end to help restore our gut after it has gone through something like that. And so I think we're starting to see the ramifications of all of those antibiotics that were taken now come out in our skin because it's kind of a compounding effect. So the body can only take so much until there's that one probably very small instance that you probably don't even remember where you were stressed out or something happened or you ate the wrong food, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and all of a sudden your skin started to break out. And it's hard to really pinpoint that one specific instance because usually it is so small, but it's because the body has been under stress for so long and trying to combat the possible bacterial overgrowth, the yeast overgrowth, and then that's going to hinder your immune system. And so the body's constantly trying to play catch up until one day it just can't.
That's so interesting. I kind of want to pick your brain. This is like off topic completely now. We will get back to the interview. But if you are taking antibiotics, what can you do afterwards to repair the gut? Because I mean, I know that antibiotics are not very great for your stomach and whatnot. And I'm about to go on it.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know from you, what can I do afterwards?
Sure. So you can do a couple of different things. And I do want to say, like, I am not anti antibiotics because I do think they're very life saving. I mean, they were a huge medical breakthrough when we did come out with like penicillin and all of that. I just think they can be overused. But to answer your question, using a spore-based probiotic is usually my number one recommendation, and even doing this while you're on antibiotics. So spore-based probiotics specifically can withstand the intensity of antibiotics. So they're different than probably a normal probiotic you would go and pick up off of the shelf or a probiotic you would see in yogurt or sauerkraut or something like that. They're specific to or there's like a whole backstory on them. And there's a great episode on my podcast if you want to learn more about the backstory of spore-based probiotics and how they came about. It's pretty fascinating. I had a microbiologist explain this, but I don't want to take up all of our time explaining that.
I'll link it in the show notes.
But spore-based, they basically can do it kind of sounds funky and weird, but I swear by them. But they do this thing called quorum sensing, and it's how bacteria communicate with one another. And so spore-based probiotics quorum sense inside of your gut to kind of tell the good bacteria that's already in there, like, hey, we have invaders. We need to clean this up. The antibiotics are going to kind of help with cleaning up the bad bacteria as well, but we also need to put on our armor and get to work and like the battle is on, essentially, instead of having your antibiotics completely wipe out all of your good gut bacteria. So that's what you could do during your round of antibiotics. And then obviously continuing to take spore-based probiotics afterwards is usually a good idea. I usually do at least 3 months, just to help rebalance the gut. The ones that I love, it's called Mega Spore Biotic. They also have a couple different types of types of probiotics as well, depending on if you struggle with like yeast overgrowth and different conditions like that. But their Megasport is great because it has all of the keystone strains that your gut needs in order to help all of the other strains in your gut proliferate. And so that's why it's my go-to. You may notice a little bit of bloating, a little bit of discomfort when you first start taking it because it's pretty strong. I mean, it's a pretty powerful probiotic. And so you will notice some changes. And I know some people do struggle when they are on antibiotics as well. It just makes them feel kind of like, ugh, not good. But
Mm-hmm.
push through that. I think that's a big thing that I always have to tell my clients is sometimes we have to push through the detox. We have to push through the pain because that's where we're going to see the results. We can't pull back when there's a little bit of discomfort.
Gotcha. Okay. That's great advice. So I will definitely go look out. I do have probiotics. I don't know if it's spore face, but I will definitely take a look and then check and see if I can find it at a local store here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so let's get back to your story and your journey. I'd love to start at the beginning. What was your experience leading up to starting your own business? Did you always know you wanted to have your own business? Was that the intention?
Yes and no. I will say when I was younger, you know how they always say, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always wanted to be a CEO in like the power suit. That's always what I had in mind. So whether or not that was owning my own business or like running a company, I don't think in my head it like mattered at that point. And then my dad has been an entrepreneur ever since I was little. And so I saw him, and I think that just made it a lot easier for me. I didn't have as many like barriers to entry of thinking like, oh gosh, could I even do this? It was almost second nature of like, well, yeah, if that's what you want to do, let's go do it. And so I struggled with my own health, and I went to college and I was really sick in college. And there's like a whole backstory to that. And then I figured out how to really heal myself. And I felt like people were not being told the right things in order to heal. We have a great healthcare system when you're sick. And if you have acute issues, like if I break my leg, I'm going to the hospital. But we don't have great preventative care. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I saw a lot of misinformation or holes when I was sick that they were telling me to do. And it just, nothing ever worked that the doctor told me, unfortunately. And so I had to figure it out on my own. And from there, I just started sharing information. And then from there, it kind of turned into this business. And so I don't know if I ever had that specific moment in time of this is the business I'm going to start and this is what it's going to become. I feel like it's always just evolved. And I feel like that's a blessing and a curse because sometimes I feel like I'm scrambling, like, oh gosh, definitely should have seen this coming, but I didn't. And then other times I throw something out there and I have this idea and it works. Um, so I would say yes and no. Of have I always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
At what point did you decide you're like, I'm going to go to school for this?
So I went to college for my degree in college initially was agricultural business. I got sick in college. I looked to switching my major to nutrition, but I was a junior, like almost a senior by then, and it just didn't make sense. And so I graduated and I had already been sick all through college trying to figure things out. And so after that is when I went on to get my certification education or my nutrition education and just kept being curious. And so I kept doing different certifications after I got certified as a nutritionist. So I did a certification in like kinesiology and muscle testing, and I did a certification in like just furthering my education to bring everything together that I was utilizing, but I wanted to know more about in order to help people and teach people. And so I think it was the catalyst was me getting sick, me figuring out how to heal myself, and me just being curious. And I don't even think at the point where I started my education did I think I was going to turn it into a business. I was just genuinely curious and I just wanted to learn more. I was like hungry for more information. And that was the best way to do it.
Gotcha. When you were sick, did you figure out your solution, like the solution to your problems? Like, did you figure it out on your own?
So I didn't figure it out on my own, but I was my own health advocate. And that's the biggest thing I want everyone to take away is you have to be your own health advocate. So I, in freshman year of college, really struggled with this intense pain on the right side of my stomach. I kept going to the health center and they told me everything was fine. I was likely passing some sort of ovarian cyst. Just take Advil, you'll be fine. But that went on for month after month after month. And I still kept going to the health center and they kept telling me I was fine. And I knew instinctively that something was off. Something was not right. This wasn't just a cyst trying to pass. And so I went home for spring break and saw a different doctor. And she did a different round of testing on me. She came back with the same conclusion, but her conclusion was that we needed to remove it surgically because it was too large. And if it stayed in there, it could potentially get tangled up in my ovaries and make me infertile. And so we went into surgery, and in surgery is when they figured out what was wrong with me because even her diagnosis was incorrect. And
Wow.
so they opened me up. I was out. My parents were dealing with all of this while I was out on the table. And it ended up being my appendix that had been chronically inflamed for months. And so I had a condition called chronic appendicitis instead of acute appendicitis, which is where you get the pain, your white blood cell count goes up, you get it removed, and everything's okay. I had the opposite. It was like so slow growing that it never flagged on my blood test until they opened me up. And so I mean, if I think about it too hard, it could freak me out because if I wasn't my own health advocate and had just listened to that initial doctor and kept taking Advil, there would have been a day where it would have burst and I probably would have died because it was so toxic. I would have probably become septic immediately. Um, and so like, if there is something telling you that something is wrong and you don't feel like your doctor is listening to you or working with you, go find another doctor. There are plenty of good ones out there and plenty of bad ones, but you have to be your own health advocate because it could save your life.
I 100% agree. And thank God that you were. Like,
Yeah.
holy smokes. That's insane. Like, I can't even imagine a doctor telling me that this pain in my side after experiencing it for months is not like, there's nothing wrong. Go take some Advil. Like, that would be infuriating.
Yeah, it was. And it was so disheartening. And also, I was 18 years old at the time. And so I was just I had moved away, gone to college, living in the dorms. Like, there were so many changes going on at that time of my life that I was just, I mean, I think truthfully, it was like just God who took over and was like, no, we need to keep like being that squeaky wheel because to look back and think about everything else I was going through, it was a lot.
Oh God, I can only imagine. I mean, you're so young at that age, right? Like,
Mhm.
and being away from home for the first time, I mean, that's a huge change in itself, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty crazy. When you started your business, so I'm getting back to the business stuff now before we dive more into the actual health aspects.
Mhm.
What was your experience starting the actual business? Like coming up with your name? Like, did you have a business plan? Like, what was your process in rolling that out and launching it?
Um, so I came up with my name Detoxing with Dani. I think I was like in the kitchen cooking and I was like, "Oh, that sounds like a great name." And so I just like made an Instagram account and started sharing just information through Detoxing with Dani, and that's kind of what translated into my business name. So that I've always had business plans and business names and course names really come to me in like the weirdest moments. So like whether it's in the shower or cooking or falling asleep, like it's never something where I sit down and I'm like, yes, this is what we're going to call it. It's always some crazy time where of course you don't have a pen and a piece of paper and you're just like, okay, I really hope I remember this. So that's kind of where that came from. And then I had just always gone to functional health doctors, nutritionists when I was sick. And I kind of just mimicked what they did or saw what they did and molded it to what would work for me. So I've always done everything virtual. I have seen clients in person occasionally. My husband and I own a gym as well. And so sometimes I'll see clients there. But I realize that that kind of closes me off to the amount of people that I can really see and impact. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kept it virtual and I will say it was not perfect from the get-go. I had to keep making changes and tweaks and changes to my pricing and changes to my packages and okay, also seeing what people and clients that I was working with, they're used to also going to a doctor or going to a nutritionist in a certain format or capacity. And so when you come in with a whole different format and capacity, dealing with your health is already scary. And so when you have a whole different format, that can be a little bit scarier. And so I was like, okay, I think it's time we tweak that a little bit. So it really has been trial and error and honestly just not being afraid to put something out there and see how it works because it's never going to be perfect right off the bat. And I think you learn your best lessons when you implement something and you fail. Like failure is my biggest friend because then I figured out, okay, that doesn't work. We're going to change it up a little bit and we're going to do something different. And it's taken me probably it took me a good year and a half to really figure out what works for me and my clients and my ideal client, truthfully. Um, so yeah, I just initially started off with one-on-one clients. And then after I started seeing enough people and really understanding what their foundational need was when it came to acne and when it came to gut health. And I started to create courses to help people who maybe didn't have the budget to work with me one-on-one right away, but they could go through the foundational program and get started because that's truthfully what I'm going to tell you to do if you come to me and talk to me one-on-one. So why not do it in a format where you can do it yourself and it's more budget friendly and I walk you through the first 3 phases that I would take you through initially. And so really just taking in all of that information, I always am like doing detective work kind of and just always putting pieces of the puzzle together of what is the best way to serve my client in the most efficient way possible, but still doing it with love and grace.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just always been trial and error, I guess. I've never been I've always had goals and what I want to achieve, but I've never put together a business plan because personally, and I think everybody is different, and I think you need to understand who you are as an entrepreneur because that will help you succeed as well. If I put a business plan together and I didn't succeed at that business plan, it would crush me because I'm such a task oriented. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I am a get things done. And if I don't achieve it, it's going to kind of send me into a spiral. So I know that about myself. And so I set more micro goals as my business plan, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of how I've done it.
You and I are the same. I'm an Enneagram 3 as well. A 1, like more so a 3, but still a 1 as well.
Uh-huh.
And I can't do a business plan. Like I just can't do it. Like I have my goals and that's how I figure out what I'm doing. And I pivot as I go, as I learn more about myself as to like what I really want to do, how I can best serve, what that's going to look like. Like I need to be open to change.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Open to change.
Exactly. And I love that you talked about, failing and just their learning opportunities. And I think we just totally need to just stop saying failure. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not a fail. It's like the universe or whatever pivoting you in the way that you should be going, and you're just trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
It's like, it just, failure is just such a negative word, and it's something that's actually really positive because it's
Mm-hmm.
getting you closer and closer to what you ultimately want and need.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lesson. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
lesson. Yeah, I agree. I think failure is such a harsh word, and we just focus on that too much. And I heard a really great, because failure, I feel like failure and fear go hand in hand. And I heard this, oh gosh, I forget what it's called when you have like, you spell a word out and each letter means something. I know there's like a term for that, but I am drawing a blank to it. But they said that fear stands for false evidence appearing real.
Hmm.
And I like that just so resonated with me, because you can convince yourself of anything, really, if you
Oh
like
God, yeah.
sit and think about it too hard. And really, it's just, okay, that didn't work out. We're going to move over here. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're going to go broke and have to live on the street. It doesn't mean anything, really. It just means that, like you said, you're pivoting in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a detour when there's construction on the road. we're,
Exactly.
we're just detouring.
Exactly. And it's, I mean, we should look at it as something fun, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're just learning more and more about ourselves, what we're doing, the business that we're creating. It's like taking us on this journey where we're just going to get to this place that we ultimately will be super happy with. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a fun experience, kind of figuring out what you don't like, what's not going to work for you, and what is.
Totally. Yep. Exactly.
Now, what have been your biggest lessons, your biggest learnings, and then your wins as an entrepreneur with this business?
My biggest lessons would probably be not to put so much pressure on myself when I'm trying something new. Like I can get into this spiral where I will compare myself to other entrepreneurs or coaches in the Instagram space, and people have been sharing more and more about like launches and what they make, and just kind of, I think it can be helpful to an extent, but for some of us it's just like, and like comparisonitis just gets the best of us sometimes. And so really to stay in my lane, and I have had to mute some people on Instagram who I truly adore and think they are doing the most amazing things. But I know for myself that I can go down a rabbit hole and compare myself to them, and that's just not healthy. And so I think my biggest lessons as an entrepreneur is really just staying true to my niche, staying true to what I know, and mastering my craft, and not looking to other people to see what they're doing and thinking that I have to do the same, because it never works. I've tried it. I've tried to pivot where I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. I should be doing that. And then I end up banging my head against a wall because I've just put more work on myself. And I could have just been serving people in the zone of genius that I'm in and just not had to deal with all of that pain and suffering. So, really just staying in my lane, putting my head down, and mastering my craft is what I've learned through those like hard lessons of feeling like I have to be like somebody else.
Oh, you are so, how do I say this? Like, we're just so alike, because that's my biggest struggle.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe it's the Enneagram 3 in us.
I know. I think so. Well, I love following these like badass women who are just crushing it, and it's amazing and it's so exciting and it can be so motivating. But it's almost like for me that motivation is like 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well you need to be doing that now. Like
Mhm.
that voice in my head just starts chiming in, and he
It's
was
like a
not
squirrel.
invited.
It's like you get so easily distracted by what other people are doing that you feel like you need to be doing it, but then it takes you completely off path with what you're trying to create.
Totally. I mean, I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me. I mean, I have notebooks on notebooks where it's just like, I should be doing this, and like, oh, we should do that and do this. And like, the ideas are endless. And I think that's one thing as an entrepreneur is they're always going to be endless. Like it's just a nonstop idea reel.
Yeah. There is a saying that a past podcast guest said on one of the interviews in the past. I forget which one it was, but create more than you consume. And that's something that I'm like trying to stick with, is like just staying creative, staying in my path, right? My lane, and not looking at what everyone's doing on social media, muting people that I have to mute just because, it is a distraction for me. Not because I don't love them, but because it's best for me that way. But it's just so hard.
I know. It really is. And I think really that's where really having those specific times where you consume content is so important. Because I mean, I think we're all guilty of waking up and just opening up that Instagram app or that TikTok app, and all of a sudden it's an hour later and you still haven't gotten out of bed and you're still in your pajamas and you're just like, what did I just do with an hour of my life? So really, it's a discipline for sure.
Yeah.
It's a discipline.
Yeah. I've had to uninstall TikTok a few times, and I refuse to put it back on my phone because it's even ruined music for me. Like, we'll be driving and the songs that are constantly in these little TikTok videos that people are doing will come on the radio, and I'm like, I can't listen to this. Like, I just goddamn TikTok. Like, I can't listen to this music. It's horrible.
Totally. I know. Or you can only picture the person who's like dancing to the song.
Yes. So funny. All right, so let's talk about wins. What have been your biggest wins where you have been in the moment, you're like, holy smokes, that just happened. I'm just so damn proud of myself.
Oh gosh. I think my biggest wins are really just seeing my clients win. I mean, especially when it comes to acne, because it's such a physical thing. Like you can see the before and after. And when I get those before and afters, it's just like, freaking yes. Like this is what it's all about, because it just, I don't know. It just like lights something inside of me where I'm like, even on my darkest days, I can look at those before and afters and know that I'm here on this earth doing what I'm supposed to be here, or doing what I'm doing. You know what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I really think it's my client wins, because that's what it's all about. That's why I started this. That's one of the reasons why. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I am one of those people who I think about the 9 to 5 schedule and it literally makes me cringe. Like I did a 9 to 5 right out of college and it stressed me out. And again, I don't know if it's the Enneagram 3 in me or what it is, but I hate having people control my schedule. Like I just hate it. And so that's obviously a big win for me, is like, my husband and I were talking about this the other night of like, I created something out of nothing. And like, I don't think I've ever really sat and thought about what a win that is, because I had this idea and I had this vision and I had this dream of being able to wake up in the morning and not have to rush into my car and drink my coffee on the way to work and then go sit in front of a desk and do all of that to make a living. And I have now made that dream come true. And it took a lot of work and it took a lot of tears and it took a lot of like lumps in my throat of, is this even going to work? And it's just like one day, all of a sudden it just starts to work. It's kind of like, do you remember those toys on the playground? It was like a big circle and it had those handles and you could have like 10 people and you would push it and push it and push it to like get some momentum and then you would jump on it.
The merry-go-round?
Kind of. You didn't sit on like an animal or anything, but it was like a merry-go-round in the sense
like a
of
disc, right?
Yeah, like a disc. And you would like have all of your friends start pushing it. And at first it was really hard. And then it got easier and easier and easier. And then all of a sudden it just starts spinning and you jump on and you just enjoy the ride. That is what I feel like entrepreneur life is.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, because it's just like at first you feel like this thing is never going to move. It's never going to move.
Mhm.
And then you're like, okay, we're kind of moving. We're kind of chugging along. And then all of a sudden it starts moving. And then all of a sudden it starts really moving. And you're like, okay, I have to jump on because it's going to like rip my arm off if I don't. And so I think, yeah, that was thinking about that and like how far, really taking the time to look back and see how far I've come since starting this business was such a win when I sat down and thought about it. And I think that's something that I need to do a better job at, is really celebrating my wins, because I'm always, again, it's that three in me of like, okay, we're on to the next. Great. You did
Oh
that.
my God,
Cool.
yes.
On to the next. So yeah, I would say those have been like my two biggest wins, are my client success stories, like before and afters. And yeah, kind of just living my dream schedule that I've always wanted.
That's amazing. We often don't take that moment to just sit down and be like, okay, this is where I started and this is where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm. No.
And to acknowledge that growth and everything that you've done since. Like, it's such a huge thing. Like, and we often just don't even become aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. It's so easy just to gloss over. Because again, going back to that comparison gremlin that sneaks up, is like, oh, well, you're not as good as that person. Or like, oh, you got 1,000 views, but she got 100,000 views. And it's like, no, no, no. Like, you also have to think, okay, how long has she been doing it? She's been doing it for 10 years. You've been doing it for 3 years. Keep taking the steps and you'll get there.
Exactly. Everyone started somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? They all started at zero. They
Yeah.
all grew.
Yeah.
So you're going to get there eventually. You just need to be patient with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Now let's talk about acne.
Yes.
So what are the root causes of acne? How is our skin connected to our gut health?
Oh my gosh. So I'll try to make this as quick as I can, because there is so much that goes on. But there's a lot of different root causes that I have found, but I'll talk about some of the main ones that I see most often. And usually they all start in the gut. And a big reason of why they begin in the gut is because your gut is what absorbs all of your nutrients. I mean, that is where we break down our food, we absorb our food, and the nutrition that we get through our food. We also, I mean, if you've been on any rounds of antibiotics, that's going to disrupt your microbiome. And we always have to take steps to reconstitute that microbiome. Plus, just, I mean, I'll speak more towards females because that's who I work with. Most of us have been on the birth control pill, some for 15, 20 years. And that feeds bad bacteria, yeast in the gut, and that can cause an imbalance inside of the gut. The birth control pill also depletes us of nutrition. And so a big thing that I don't think enough people look at is nutrient deficiencies when it comes to acne. Because your skin, your hair, and your nails are the very first organs to start breaking down when there's an imbalance in the body. The body wants to keep all of the other vital organs healthy before it's going to put any more nutrition into your hair, skin, and nails. And so if you notice that your skin is starting to break down, or your hair is starting to thin, or maybe your nails are becoming more brittle, look at nutritional deficiencies. Nutritional deficiencies are kind of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You don't know what's happening until that final paper cut and you're gone. Because over time, if your digestion isn't optimal, if you aren't eating well, those are depleting your nutrient stores little by little by little, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And then, like I said, all of a sudden, there's something that breaks the straw that broke the camel's back, and your skin just starts to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And so I always look at nutritional deficiencies. Gut health is key because there's something called the gut skin axis. And if you think about it, you just have this big long tube that comes in through your mouth and goes out the other end. And that first part of the tube is your mouth, and then you have your lips, and then your skin is an extension of that. And so what the bacteria that's inside of your gut can translate to the bacteria that's on your skin. So your skin also has a microbiome. And if that gets imbalanced, which very often can from all of the astringent stripping creams, cleansers, lotions, and potions we like to put on our face when we have acne, that breaks down the skin microbiome and can leave it open and more susceptible to acne because it isn't able to protect itself like it should. And there's not that healthy balance of good and bad bacteria on the skin like there should be inside of the gut. So ultimately, what it always comes down to is balance. Something's off balance that we need to rebalance. Now, 9 times out of 10, I get messages in my DM saying that my acne is hormonal. I don't think that hormones are the true root cause of acne. They can cause acne for sure. I'm not going to deny that. But I always urge people to ask why. Why are your hormones out of balance? Because your body does not want to be out of balance. Is there something that's going on emotionally, stress-wise, that could potentially be throwing your hormones out of balance? Is your blood sugar out of balance? That's going to put your hormones out of balance. Do you have some sort of high testosterone or high estrogen because your gut and your liver aren't able to properly metabolize your hormones and detoxify? So always ask why. And that's usually where we begin when I work with clients one-on-one, is we pull together every single symptom they have. I mean, it could be everything from headaches to achy joints to bloating, constipation. Acne is obviously a symptom. And that's a big thing that I tell people is acne is a symptom. It's not a condition. Acne is a symptom of something much bigger going on, and we have to figure that out. And so we pull all of those signs and symptoms together to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that we can then look at this big picture and roadmap of where we need to go. Oftentimes, we're only working with a couple pieces of the puzzle and we don't know what the heck we're looking at. And so my job is to help you pull those pieces of the puzzle together, look at the big picture, and come up with that roadmap of how we get from point A to point B.
I like that you mentioned that acne is a symptom, because
Mm-hmm.
often we feel like it's permanent, like it's the condition, it's the issue type thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be fully healed. You just have to get to the root cause of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're so used to going to a doctor, telling him or her our symptom, and then giving us something for that symptom, where we really need to be asking, okay, why are you having that symptom? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, the body does not want to be out of balance. Your skin does not want to be breaking out, because that is holes. Your skin, part of your skin is part of your immune system because it
Mm-hmm.
protects you from outside invaders. It also holds in water and also helps from things inside of you to not get out. And so your body does not want to be broken. It does not want to break that essential barrier, which is your skin. And that's what happens when you have acne, eczema, rosacea, psoriasis. Something is causing that. And that's a big part of my mission, is for people to understand this is not a life sentence. This is not a condition that you're stuck with for the rest of your life. It comes all the way back to being your own health advocate. If you know something is off, let's figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't accept that if you're not willing to accept it.
100%. All right, so let's talk about different areas that we can target to heal the root causes of our acne.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is nutrition. What should we be focusing eating on versus not eating?
Yeah, so food is a big one, because I think food is one of the biggest stressors when it comes to acne, because we're all so concerned about, is what we're eating causing our acne? And to an extent, yes. However, you always ask the question, why? Why are you having that reaction to a food? And usually it comes back to some sort of leaky gut, a bacterial imbalance, a yeast overgrowth. Something, again, is out of whack in the gut. But that doesn't mean we should not be eliminating certain foods to help eliminate fuel on the fire. And so some of the main foods that I always have people eliminate, at least for 30 days, is gluten, dairy, corn, and processed sugar. And I mean eliminate them. This isn't a like, oh, I do good on the weekdays, and then I kind of skimp off on the weekends. No, that's not how this works. I'm not telling you have to eliminate these for the rest of your life, but if you have a leaky gut going on and you eat those inflammatory foods and that inflammation then leaks into your bloodstream, it's going to come out in your skin. So we need to eliminate those to get rid of the fuel from the fire, address the fire, heal the holes that the fire has caused, and then we can start introducing those foods again to see how you react.
Is 30 days long enough, like, to see a difference?
If you had to ask what the perfect amount of time is, I usually go with like 3 to 6 months, to be honest.
Okay.
But most people will walk away if I tell them that.
Let's get them in.
So I say 30 days because here's the thing. I sometimes have to convince you of what we're doing. And so for the first 30 days, I guarantee you will see a difference if you strictly stay away from those. Now, the issue may not be resolved within 30 days, but you will see such a difference that you will want to continue eliminating those.
That's smart. That's very smart.
So that's where we start with food. And what I also want to say is focus on what you can eat. Focus on the things that are going to be nourishing to your body. So it's always going to be like leafy green vegetables, whole foods, whole grains, wild, organic, when you can, animal protein. Really just like eat well. I don't think we need to box ourselves into like, I have to do the paleo diet, or I have to do the AIP diet, or I have to do the keto diet, because that just creates more angst in our head, and in our the angst in our head can actually translate to throwing off our hormones. So focusing on that, I always say try to get in 7 to 9 cups of vegetables a day. That in and of itself is really difficult to do. So if you just focus on that, you can get a good amount in with a protein or with a smoothie in the morning, adding in a little bit of good protein, and then always having a veggie on your plate with every meal. That's a great place to start because fiber and veggies are going to really help your gut, and your gut is going to love you. So yeah, as far as foods go, that's what I typically start with.
What about skincare practices and products? Are there any tips or suggestions that you have there that can help us take better care of our skin as it's healing?
Yeah, so I always say we want to nourish the skin. We don't want to do all of these stripping, astringent cleansers and acids and harsh products on our skin, because again, this is it's a protective layer. We don't want to break that down too much. I think adding in maybe like a vitamin C, or maybe a little bit of like a mandelic acid is really gentle and a good place to start. But don't overdo it, because sometimes that can cause more acne. And so I usually just tell people stick with a very gentle cream cleanser or possibly oil cleanser. It really depends on where you're at in your breakouts, how severe they are, what they look like, what type of acne it is. Because if you have fungal acne, you don't want to use oil-based products on your skin. There's a lot of different variables, but overall, I usually just do basic cleanser. If you want to do some sort of toner or essence, by all means. Like, I want this to be enjoyable and not something where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all 20 of these skincare steps. And then at night, you could do some sort of like that mandelic acid serum or something to help fight some of those breakouts and maybe help unclog some of those pores, especially if you tend to be more oily. And then just a good, nourishing moisturizer, something that's going to help lock in moisture. A big thing when it comes to acne is we usually have dehydrated skin on top of acne because we've used so much acid and astringents. And we don't want that. Your skin wants to be hydrated. And so making sure you're using something that has good hydration to help lock that in, that can look like hyaluronic acid, and then maybe put something a little bit heavier on top. Because one thing I've learned, especially at night, is we don't like that oily residue or that like residue that kind of just sits on our skin at night. We don't think that it's soaking things, like things are getting soaked in. But if that's your last step in your skincare routine, that's okay, because it's kind of acting as a sealant for everything else that you've put underneath it to really soak in and lock in. So the moisturizer really acts as a sealant for your serums and your oils that you put on beforehand so that they can do what they need to do. The moisturizer is there just to make sure that stuff doesn't evaporate right off of your skin.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. When it comes to vitamins and supplements and herbs, is there anything that you always recommend to start including in your diet that will help in healing your gut quicker and improving the skin health?
Yeah, so my basics that I usually go through and tell people to start with is vitamins and minerals, and a good spore-based probiotic to help to reinoculate and reconstitute the gut, because that's typically part of the underlying root cause when it comes to acne. So we got that covered in the beginning, the spore-based probiotic. As far as minerals go, a really easy way to do this is adding lemon and sea salt to your water. This will help to what I call electrify your water and actually push the water into your cells so that you're actually hydrating yourself. There's like that big thing going around right now where you drink a gallon of water a day. And I hate to tell you this, but you're probably dehydrating yourself because you're flushing out all of your electrolytes. You have to have minerals in your water. And most of us, at least here in the States, our tap water and even filtered water sucks. Plain and simple. And so we have to add those minerals back in. And the easiest way and the cheapest way to do it is with lemon, fresh lemon squeezed into your water with a pinch of sea salt. This could be pink salt, Himalayan salt, sea salt, Celtic salt, real salt, gray salt, just anything but iodized salt, basically. And that will really help to hydrate you and remineralize your cells in your body. And then as far as restoring those nutrient deficiencies that I talked about earlier, my favorite way to do this is a prenatal or a multivitamin. I go towards a prenatal because I have one that I just love and adore and has worked so well for so many of my clients. Most multivitamins aren't formulated as well as the one that I like, and so that's why I say prenatal. But this is a great way to, again, help refill those nutrient stores that are probably depleted. Because when it comes to acne, usually there's some sort of zinc deficiency, vitamin A deficiency. If you have an MTHFR SNP, you're not getting in a good amount of B vitamins, and those are necessary for your hormones. There's so many things that can be at play, but really getting in and making sure you're getting in daily nutrition with like a good multivitamin or a good prenatal, or even they have like nutritional shakes now. So it's in powder form that you can put into your smoothie. That's a great way to do it. Because unfortunately, we just cannot get enough nutrition in through our food anymore. It's just, you would have to be eating so much more food than even our grandparents had to eat in order to get the amount of nutrition we need on a daily basis.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true though. Nutrition, food today is just not what it used to be. It's so lacking.
I know it is. And it's so sad because it's just soil depletion, and I will say, unless you grow your own organic garden, you can get it, but most of us don't have the time or space to do that.
Or the thumb,
Yeah,
the green
exactly.
thumb.
Yes, exactly. I did not get that gene.
Me neither. I think I killed a cactus once. All right, so let's talk about your offerings. What do you have available? What is it like working with you? What can people expect?
Yeah. So truthfully, I have a lot out there, and I'm actually working on making it a little bit more succinct because I don't want you to have analysis paralysis. So I would say the best place for people to start is I have a page on Instagram called the Acne Wellness Center, and this is all about acne, where to begin. We talk about the basics. My highlight section is all of these mini lessons of where you can start. That's usually where I want to send people because it's the easiest way to take in information. From there, we can schedule a one-on-one call. That's where you and I sit down and we really dig into your health history, your acne history, what you've tried, what you haven't tried, what worked, what hasn't worked, and come up with a personal plan and protocol. Now, before that, I do have a course called the Acne Detox. And truthfully, this is where I tell most people to start before they even come to see me, because I don't know if it's because I probably spent over $10,000 on my skin when I struggled with acne. And I know what it's like to feel like you're constantly forking out money. And so I'm just very cognizant of this, and I never want to waste your money. And so I always recommend people start with that acne detox because that's most likely what you're going to go through with me, but at a fraction of the cost. And that takes you through a 3-phase approach where we go through a gut cleanse first for 30 days. Then we start to address bacterial overgrowth, candida, yeast overgrowth, and digestive issues in phase 2. And then phase 3 is where we really start to focus on restoring those nutrient deficiencies, talking about basic nutrients that your skin needs in order to heal. And that's a great place for people to start. And it'll take you through a 3-month program, essentially. And then if at that point, things still aren't starting to fall into line, that's where we can really hit the ground running and possibly do some functional lab testing, which can come into play, like a stool analysis or a hormone panel, or just look at your blood work to see if there's anything that we're missing that we need to address further.
Seems pretty solid.
I hope so. I've worked hard to try to streamline all of this because I always just want to throw everything and anything at people because I know what it's like, and I want to help you so bad that I'll just give everything away.
That's amazing. All right. So if anyone wants to learn more about you, where do you hang out the most? What platforms are you on?
So Instagram is where I hang out the most. So I have that, I would call it an educational page. So I have the Acne Wellness Center. That's really all about acne and education. If you want to just come hang out with me, get to know me, see what my life is all about, then Detoxing with Dani is where I hang out the most and show you the ins and outs of my life. And yeah, we just kind of hang out. And those are the 2 main places that I'm at. I do have a podcast as well. Again, that's all a lot of educational information, where to get started, what to do. I go in depth on topics like acne after birth control and what are some good substitutes for high testosterone and spironolactone, and deeper topics that I just can't get out in a 60-second story.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dani, for taking the time to join me as a guest and for sharing incredible advice on how we can take better care of our skin from the inside out. And for also sharing your journey creating your business. I feel like I relate to you so much. So it's been absolutely lovely chatting with you today.
Thank you so much. Same.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.